Okay, everybody, so today we're going to look at how to create depth. And I've got this picture which I've sent through to you of a cave under a mine, a local one here in the Brecon Beacons. And you can see the way that the depth is created by the difference between the light areas and this dark square right in the distance. So to look at it on basic terms, we're just going to use some charcoal and a little bit of chalk, just because charcoal doesn't give you this really dark black area. And we're going to hopefully create this depth in the background. Sorry about the noise in the background. I've got children playing next door. Okay, so all you need is a piece of paper. You can use normal paper. I'm using this mixed media paper again. You can use sugar paper. I'm using white because we've got lots of white areas in here. And we've got lots and lots of shape. So what I've done is I've taken the mixed media paper and I've put some masking tape around the edge because I want to create this square format. If you feel like you need to draw the square in the distance, just take a little piece of charcoal and just put that square, that very distant square, just in the detail, in the distance here. Okay, so that square's gone down now, and you can just draw the very basic track, the walkway through the mine here. It comes down there and then it goes down to there like that. Okay, and then the rest of it really we're going to build up using the chalk and the shapes and the colours. Okay, so you can just continue with your normal charcoal, but like I said, this is quite light. If you use the side, you'll be able to block it in really easily. But you can see it's quite grey. So I'm just going where the areas are that are really black. The other benefit of charcoal is it's not as dusty as the chalk that I was using a couple of weeks ago. So it's a bit more sort of user-friendly is the word, as in you're not breathing in so much dust. I really like working with it, and you can build up tones and shape and texture using it really, really easily. So there's that big cut section there, which is really dark. So you can see how quickly it starts to build. I'm going to go in with the side again and just fill in most of the floor, side to side. And even though it gets lighter as it goes away into the distance, it's still a grey tone. So, you know, there's very little actual white in this picture, but I'm just going to go over it very roughly like that and get rid of most of the white paper. Then I'm going to take my fingers and I'm just going to start to smooth it. Now, if you work across on the floor and on the ceiling, across from left to right or right to left, and then down for the walls, then you'll start to feel the geometry of the place and the form and the three-dimension coming out just by the marks that you're making with your fingers. Okay, so after that we've got really dark areas, and because this charcoal is just the standard charcoal, it doesn't get things very dark. I'm going to use one of my chalks, the pastels that I was using a couple of weeks ago. And this gives me a really intense black tone. Okay, so I'm just going to use this across this area. And one of the main reasons why there's so much beautiful depth in this picture is because we've got these really dark sections in the distance. So it's really important that you get those in there and really clearly as well. I'll show you how to make edges crisp in a minute towards the end of the image. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to put some of the darker tone in around, and especially down this side here where it's extremely black. And this is where you get the contrast, and where the drama happens in the picture is from these huge great swathes of black and white. So it's really important that you get this as black as possible. You might find it difficult if all you've got is charcoal, but you can buy things like intense black charcoal chalks. So if you feel you need to, then go and buy yourself a darker stick to work with. I'm not going to blow this off just yet because I want to keep some of the powder. I'm going to pick it up with my fingers instead of wasting it. So I'm just smoothing that in. Okay, and I'm going to take what's left on my finger and use it, pick it up off the paper and use it on the floor. And because the floor is quite textural, it'll take this powder, and you're creating texture down here by just adding these blobs of powdery forms in on this lower area. Okay, I'm going to need some more down here. So again, just go in with this intense colour. It only goes to about there, so then stop, because there's obviously fluorescent lighting or something in this underside, in the underneath of the roof system here, which is why there's a light area in the centre. So again, I'm just leaving some patches free of colour. I'm going to drag. You can see that how that is so effective, just dragging the powder from the side across the paper surface. You can intensify black areas by just adding more of this charcoal. Okay, we got this dark crack coming down here and into this area here, so I'm going to keep that. And then there's another sort of suggestion of a crack there, and then there's another area of darkness just in here. So just put sort of patches down, work them in, and then see what happens. See if you can express form by applying these layers of chalk or charcoal in a variety of ways. Try and keep that vertical mark making going on the upright walls, and try and keep the sort of horizontal mark making on the horizontal surfaces, that is the floor and the ceiling. And you might get it to a point where you think, actually I quite like that, I'm going to leave it. It's a very quick method, this is, the using of charcoal and chalk builds up really quickly, much quicker than any kind of painting, which is why a lot of people use it for things like life drawing and so on. So it might be that you attempt this one, see how you like it. If you enjoy using the pastel, then you can carry on with it, or you can have a go at using one of the other images. I'm including several images here for you to play with again. Keep those vertical marks happening on those walls in the upper areas. Add in some more. You can drag things up from the bottom like I'm doing there. Just keep building up those marks. Think about the marks that you're creating. Where are those marks coming from? They're coming from the various tools that would have been used to excavate these tunnels. I went to the Big Pit a couple of weeks ago, and it was fascinating. Such a great place to learn about the local geology, as well as the miners that used to work down these pits. Just incredible. And the harshness of the environments that they had to put up with. Quite amazing. Quite amazing. And also a reminder of how lucky we are. Okay, so like I said, intensify by adding more colour. This chalk will just get darker and darker and darker as you layer it. It's really amazing. Use your blending tool if you need it. If you don't want to use your fingers, just use the blending tool to lift and blend. This is the other blending tool that I showed you, which is just the paper version of that. But like I said, I really enjoy using my fingers, so I'm going to carry on using my fingers. But if you don't like it, then use the blending tool. So there, I'm just going to lightly tap and blow this off, and then I'm going to come in with a white. Okay, so up here we've got white, up here quite a lot. We've got a good section of light just there. Again, this is quite a chubby, what they call a chubby pastel, so it's quite difficult to get fine detail. You can shave them down using knives, so you can sharpen them just like you would a pencil if you feel like you need to. But I'm just going to leave it quite simple. And there's some beautiful marks happening just here. So this is where you need to get in, really look at what you're creating. So there's a dark mark there, there's a dark, right, so there's a really small mark. I don't know whether I can get in this fine. I'll try. Yeah, not too bad. You can see how lovely it is once you start getting those white patches in and building up those areas. Again, you can smudge these in if you feel like you need to, but as the white mixes with the black, it will sort of mix itself in a way. So I'm just going to come down here with a flash of light there, and a flash of light there, and there. Some more little flashes just there and there. We got some sort of bitty marks. So think about your mark making. Maybe use some dashes. This is probably where the granite is showing through, actually, because alongside the slate and the coal, there's lots of other different types of stone surfaces coming through. So there will be a variety of marks happening. There's a big stripe coming down there. It's in a sort of curve and it bends, and then that's where it sort of joins the floor. So again, sharp dashy marks, even dots down the front here. Towards the front of the composition, you could put some dots in. But obviously as you go further back, they would not be as visible, those marks, so be careful where you put them. This here has a big flash of white on it, and there's some sort of sweeping marks there like that, and then this is quite light here, and it's all quite light, so use the texture of what's underneath to help you describe this surface. Again, use your pastel to almost blend into various shades of grey. There's a light mark just running along this edge here, like that. Okay, now I can see that there's a lot of grey bits here. This needs to be more intense. If you squint with your eyes, you can see that certain areas will need to be intensified, and that is just done by adding extra layers on top. Again, down that area. I'm just going to blow it off again. Okay, now I do have a grey here as well, and it's up to you. If you've got a grey, you can put some grey in if you want to. It will just add a little bit of extra dimension and 3D to this piece. Just a slightly, ever so slightly different tone, and it will give you some extra dimension. Again in here. Again, if you feel like you need to smudge, then go for it. Think about the shapes that are being produced in these areas. Try not to get muddled up between the dark grey areas and the lighter tones, and also between the blacks and the greys. So okay, so you can see really clearly how this form starts to come out at you. Try not to overwork it. Again, some different types of textures just down the foreground will help enormously. Smooth textures as well as rough textures also will help. Be careful when you're smudging, especially if you're going into the white areas. Make sure that you've got clean fingers if you're going to have them remain white. The only other thing, I mean, I'm quite happy with that. I'm just going to wipe my hands off. I just wipe my hands off with a cloth. I'm just going to tap off the surface. The only thing I might have done is just to add a bit more black into that really distant square there. And if it doesn't become black enough, then my suggestion would be to hairspray this, and then so that it seals it, and then you can work more black into that area. Okay, so on the final picture you might see that I have done that. So I'm just going to peel this masking tape off now. I don't know whether you remember my trick, but if you've only used normal masking tape and not low tack tape, which you can get in the shops these days, sometimes this bonds really heavily to your paper. So use a hairdryer and peel it off very slowly so it doesn't tear. So I'm just going to do this a minute, and I will, and then you can see the finished piece. Okay, so it'll be noisy for a little while. Okay, so there we go. Now you can see how beautifully that leaves and cleans up the area around your image. Nice and crisp. And you need that with charcoal because you can see the mess over here, can't you? It is a messy medium to use. So have a go at that. Like I said, I'm just going to spray it with hairspray or fixative, and then I'm just going to, once the hairspray is dry, I will just intensify that really black area in the distance. Have a go at this one and then attempt the other images that I've sent you, because they are really beautiful, and it is a hugely satisfying technique and medium to use, because it removes that need for colour and colour mixing and all that thought. You're just working with tone, black and white. If you fancy using browns, you can just use browns or just blues or just reds or just oranges. It's up to you, but just work with either the colour and white or the colour and black or whatever, but just stick to tonal representation. Okay, and enjoy. And I will see you next week. Bye for now.